Hey guys, today we are reverse searing two beautiful prime grade ribeyes, and I gotta be honest, this is a bit of a throwback video for me. This is based on a video I did 3.5 years ago with Dave Parrish, the owner of SnS Grills. Back then we did a series of cooking videos. This is in the early days of the Slow N Sear to kind of get that channel up off the ground, and this was the first cooking video we did together. So I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic, but I thought since they came out with the new Slow N Sear Kettle and they're sponsoring this video, it's the perfect opportunity to put kind of a 2020 twist on that 2017 video. So hope you guys enjoy this. And of course, we're starting off with the dry brine. Those steaks have been in the fridge overnight. They've been absorbing that salt. That's what's great about dry brining. It's one of the things that's great about it, is that salt pulls out the moisture, which then melts the salt, and then through diffusion, like imagine like a drop of food coloring in a clear glass of water, the way that would just spread out over time. That's exactly what that salt does within that steak, and that locks in that moisture. It keeps the surface of the steak as dry as possible so you get a better sear, but mostly, and this is worth the price of admission, that salt spreads out inside the steak and it tastes the perfect amount of saltiness in every bite. It's wonderful. It's worth the price of admission for that right there. So we have 25 fully lit briquettes in our Slow N Sear, and I do recommend fully lit briquettes because you want a nice clean burn for this part of the smoke. If you wanna add wood chips, you certainly can. I would say less is more, and maybe start out without any because it really doesn't need it, and it's really easy to over smoke during this part of the cook. So like I said earlier, we are doing a reverse sear. So instead of like we all normally cook steaks, you fire up your grill to 500 degrees and you sear one side, flip it over, sear the other side, and then maybe push it off to indirect to finish up until it gets to your target temperature. We're doing just the opposite. So during the first part of the cook, we're cooking it almost 225 degrees. Actually, that's our target temp. It's to 246 right now, but it doesn't matter. We're using low and slow temps, 225, 250, to bring up the interior of that steak to 115 degrees. And then at the end, we're gonna put 1,000 degree sear on the outside and just paint on caramelization. All right, guys, we're about halfway through the slow portion of the cook. So the internal of the steaks is about 95 degrees. Normally, I would flip these a little earlier, but these sat out on the counter and they were much closer to room temperature when we started cooking. But basically, at the halfway point, because kettles cook from the top down, if you want these to be very even, you might want to flip them at about the 80 degree mark if you're pulling them out of the fridge. Like I said, we started at more close to room temperature, so I'm flipping them now. Our coals look good. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I started with 25 fully lit briquettes. I recommend Kingsford Competition. It's one of the brands of charcoal. This isn't a sponsored thing, it's just lights really fast and it's really hot. And some of the others like Weber and Royal Oak briquettes, they take a while to get going. Now they burn longer, so I like them for low and slow, but for grilling I like these. So I'm gonna throw some numbers at you. Our target temp is an internal of 135. That's medium rare. 130, 135, somewhere in there. And the reason we're pulling them off at 115 degrees is because when we do that sear, we are gonna have some overcook, and we wanna make sure we calculate that into our sear. So just so you know, we're gonna do this till they get to 115 degrees, and then we're gonna sear them and shoot for 135 at the end. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. This already smells great. Wow, just had a UPS truck and a trash truck go by, and it's not even trash day. It's crazy. So anyways, at this point, this is where I'm gonna go ahead and light a full, well, 3/4 of a chimney of charcoal and get those fully lit for the sear. All right, guys, our new charcoal is charring. It's coming up to temp. We've got our steaks, they're at 116. I need to go ahead and pull those off. I'm monitoring that with the ThermalWorks X4. I'll put a link to that below if you're interested. If you need a really good thermometer, it's not the cheapest, but it's great. I'll also put a link to the kettle. If you buy anything off those links, it helps my channel. I really appreciate it. The whole goal here is to get a nice, even sear. So I'm gonna take and I'm gonna damp off. I'm gonna wipe off the outside of anything that's damp. That's what I was going for right there. And basically that's the equivalent. Remember when you were a kid, if you burned yourself and your mom would have you put your burn under cold water to stop it from cooking, basically? This is just the opposite of that. We are taking all the cold water off the steak before we try to sear it. So we're gonna dry those off, layer them with a little coat of cooking oil. Then we're gonna do something called the Cold Grate Technique, where we're gonna put the steaks down on the cold side of the grate and then spin it over the fire so that the grate and the steak heat up at the same time. And at the end, we should get a minimal amount of sear marks. What's wrong with sear marks? Well, nothing's wrong with sear marks, but if you get a nice solid sear mark on the side of a steak from a preheated grate, you'll notice if you look between those lines, it's a little bit grayer. And what we'd like to do is eliminate that gray and make the whole thing just one big caramelized loveliness. That's right, I said loveliness. So that's the goal today. Also, we don't want that sear to go any deeper than it has to, so I'm going to flip those over to the cool side of the grate every 45 seconds. Just flip, 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 flip. Again, we don't want that the cooking to go any deeper than it needs to, just to paint the outside. Again, we want that caramelization on the outside and no deeper. So that's our goal. That's what we're gonna do right now. Technical problem with the first taste test. This camera wasn't autofocusing correctly, so we're back, and I've already cut into this, and let me go through my thoughts. One, I was shooting for medium rare, and it turned out a little more on the medium to medium well side. Still so good, y'all. Still so good. But that's the reason why you want to do this with a thicker steak. Also, you want to pay attention. Don't lose track of it like I did. So I ended up doing 45 seconds and 30 seconds respectively on the outside. That crust turned out perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for. Nice caramelization throughout, and you can really taste the difference. That sweetness as that caramelizes is so good. And then the steak was just incredibly juicy. It turned out wonderful. So give this recipe a try if you haven't already. One thing that's clear from that other video is people either thought that this was too involved or they tried it. There was no in between. Nobody said, you know what, I tried this and I hated it. There's nobody ever said that, because it is so good, and it's almost fail-safe. Even like this, you overcook it a little bit, it still turns out amazing. So this is a really good steak. I'm really happy with it, and I think you will be too. So I love you guys. Thanks for watching. If you want to see that cringy intro to the video that Dave and I did, click here. You can click on it right now and laugh at us. This is us making videos 3.5 years ago. That there's great info in that video, and we go into a lot more detail on what we did and why. So hope you guys like that. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.